Hey all you beautiful people out there, and welcome to my channel if you're new. Welcome back if you're coming back. Um, the software that I use for these kinds of videos have changed, so I wasn't quite sure how to do the lip syncing on the last video, but I have figured it out. So please subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, make sure you're still subscribed. YouTube loves unsubscribing people. If you know you're going to like this, give it a like, or you can dislike if you want. It doesn't matter. Also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter address is above my head. So I figured I'd give old Hammy Boy a break for a while and go back to good old Dr. Biddle at Genesis Apologetics. However, you still need your facepalm gear because, like all the other apologists, Dr. Biddle is a facepalm person. So grab your snacks and let's get going. Dr. Biddle, I turn it over to you. Start your babbling. And while you're thinking about it, if you're new, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? And if you've already subscribed to me, make sure you're still subscribed, because for some reason, YouTube loves to unsubscribe people. Also, if you're new here, I'd like to thank you very much for giving me a chance. And for my fans and subscribers, thank you so much for coming back. You are the lifeblood of this channel. And now, with that, let's get on with the video.
Basically, you can have brothers and sisters or cousins, that are separated now by, thousands of miles, but they were once together, and you can go find brother and sister fossils on either matching side of the continent.
Bullshit, fucking bullshit, fucking bullshit, holy shit, oh fuck it.
It's proving that they were pulled apart radically, catastrophically, and quickly. Didn't happen slowly, it happened quickly. So fossil correlation is a great evidence for the flood as well.
If your audience is not offended, I am offended for them. You just insulted their intelligence. How stupid do you think your audience is to buy bullshit like that? You are kidding me. The yuckers will only admit to one supercontinent, that being Pangea, but there were actually 7 supercontinents, some of which are kind of sketchy, but we think there were 7. The ones way back in the past are the sketchiest. So why the fuck are you surprised to find fossils on different continents? Because there were 7 fucking supercontinents in our past. It makes no sense. Either you're a fucking moron or you think your audience are morons. And it's probably both. So I actually addressed paleocontinents in one of my other videos, and instead of explaining it again, because he brought it up before, so instead of explaining it again, I'm just going to put the clip here. But before I do that, I want to address a major slip-up he just made. He admits that there are related animals on different continents. So why are you saying they're not related?
Paleogeography is the study of geography in the geologic past. Over Earth's history, the continents have moved around, mountains have risen and eroded, sea levels have fluctuated, etc. And how the geography changed affected organisms. Remember that in my video, Biogeography, we got a brief overview of the concept that organisms adapt to specific locations. For instance, polar bears and penguins are adapted to living in very cold climates, whereas elephants are adapted to living in hot climates. We cannot simply drop elephants in Antarctica or polar bears in Africa and expect them to survive because their ancestors did not evolve in similar climatic conditions. This isn't a recent phenomenon, but extends all throughout life's history. Geologists have managed to work out the movements of continents over geologic history, and those movements correspond precisely with what's observed in the fossil record.
You're saying that there was one supercontinent 4,400 years ago. The last supercontinent was Pangea, and as you can see, it was millions of years ago, not 4,400 years ago. Also, Pangea was the last supercontinent of the 7 supercontinents that we have had. The first one was Valbara billions of years ago, and that is technically theoretical because it's hard to get data from that far. Also, are you seriously proposing that 4,400 years ago there was a supercontinent and that supercontinent broke apart and land masses have been traveling at 5 miles per hour? Look, I'm far from a math wizard, but even I can make a quick mental check of this math and can tell you that the math does not work. Do you even listen to yourselves?
Some evolutionists have challenged this and saying, no, we just think that the rock was bent under heat and pressure over time. And so Dr. Snelling from Answers in Genesis got a permit from the Grand Canyon to go take 40 fist-sized rocks out of the peak of the bend here in the Grand Canyon. He took those 40 specimens into a lab and proved from a chemical signature that the bend, in fact, did happen when the rock was cold and pliable and still wet, because the chemical signature matches here, here, and here. So it wasn't bent over time with heat and pressure. It was bent when it was wet and pliable. So now we've got some great evidence that substantiates that.
You serious?
Cool. Got some peer-reviewed journal articles to back that up? Or are you just pulling that out of your ass because it's what you want to believe? And no, the Answers Journal does not count as a peer-reviewed journal, and you need more than one journal article to prove it. And since that which is presented without evidence can be dismissed without evidence, I'm going to go ahead and call bullshit on this and dismiss it, because I think you're pulling that out of your ass. And I don't trust Andrew Snelling. I'm not exactly sure what you want me to do with this information. You tell me that Andrew Snelling made a paper about this, but you don't cite any peer-reviewed sources. What do you want me to do? Since I'm such a nice gal, I'm gonna give you some pointers. You're not gonna get anywhere with us unless you give us peer-reviewed scientific journal articles. That's what we go by. Period.
Quick simulation showing of how we can get things like seashells on the tops of mountains, because when the subduction was happening, that mechanism was sufficient to push these seafloor with all these creatures that were living down there, oysters, clams, bivalves, all these things were pushed up during Noah's flood, and that's why we can get things like seashells on the top of Mount Everest. Currently 29,000 feet high, and it's jammed with marine life. So those clams didn't walk 29,000 feet up. They were on the ocean floor. The fountains of the great deep broke open, and some catastrophic, movements with the plates pushed them 29,000 feet high in the air. So very good evidence for Noah's flood.
I guess you don't know how mountains are formed. Well, I was helpful to you and put in a little animation of how the Himalayas formed. You're welcome. Now, will you please get over this silly little point and go on with your life? Dude, you said it yourself. Subduction happens, and it is still happening. Why do we need a worldwide flood for this? It happens all the fucking time. Mount Everest is still growing, you fucking idiot. Of course they didn't walk 29,000 feet up. You just said there was subduction happening. And like I said, it still happens, and Mount Everest is still growing, so what's the fucking problem? Why do we need a flood? Fossils of marine life on Mount Everest are not evidence of a global flood. It is evidence that subduction happens, which we know subduction happens, and you just admitted that subduction happens. What's the point? Now, I think it's important to stop and acknowledge that Genesis Apologetics got the right reason why seashells are up on mountains. Their reasoning, which is just as important, is wrong, but at least they came to the right answer. And yes, it is our job as educated people to point out that their reasoning is wrong, but I think it is equally our responsibility to acknowledge when they do get the right answer, because that opens up dialogue. Think about it this way. They're much more likely to listen to us if we at least acknowledge they got part of the answer right. Even if their reasoning is wrong, they got part of the answer right. And that lets us move forward.
Back to the fossil record of dinosaurs, this to me is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence. Remember, it's huge. It's 1,800 miles long by 1,000 miles wide. It takes up 14 states, 3 countries. Something happened back then that's not happening today to bury all of these creatures. So,
you are absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. Something happened back then that is not happening today. And you know what that is? It's called a meteorite, and it struck near the Yucatan Peninsula and made an iridium layer all over the world. There are only a couple of reasons I can think of that you are hiding this from your audience, and my audience might be able to think of a few more, but you are either ignorant on the subject, in which case you do not need to be lecturing on the matter, or you are flat out lying. Which is it?
He was trying to determine the relative ages of the limestone layers by analyzing the fossils left by tiny shelled sea creatures. Called foraminifera, or forams for short, they're among the most common ocean plankton. When they die, their shells become part of the sediment. Since many different species have evolved over the ages, they can serve as markers of geologic time. But as Alvarez studied them, he noticed something striking.
Well, what it sees, and it was puzzled by, after the very top of that white layer, all these very diverse microfossils species would disappear. Okay.
So, Sandro, when Walter Alvarez looked in these rocks, he saw all these species of forams. Yeah. They're plentiful. There are many species for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But after this little seam of clay here, all the way up through these rock layers, those forams are missing.
Those species are gone.
I just clipped out some clips from the previous videos. There's a whole lot more. If you want to see the videos, I've put the web address on each of them. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that Genesis Apologetics is being less than totally honest when it comes to this. Gee, imagine that. A young earth creationist not being honest with his audience. They have to lie, people. That's the only way. Excuse me. That's the only way they can sell this bullshit, is to lie, because if they told the truth, then this bullshit wouldn't sell. And there's something very wrong when you have to lie to sell your bullshit. Because if you had the truth on your side, just tell the truth.
Let's look at dinosaur taphonomy. So when we dig up dinosaurs nowadays and they're excavating them, they typically find that dinosaurs are buried in a matrix of 3 different substances: mud, sand, and ash. That's typically how we find dinosaurs buried today. There are a lot of them. Some of them are just found in mud, some are just found in sandstone, and some are just found in ash. But usually it's a composite of those 3 substances. So
I don't know much about dinosaur taphonomy, which is what he's talking about here, but I cannot find one claim backed with a paper that says that dinosaur fossils are found in a composite of these 3 things. Now, if what he is saying is true, I would love to know. I don't know. I will tell you that. I don't know. But I cannot find a claim backed up by a paper that says this, so I'm calling bullshit until I know otherwise. And the reason I'm calling bullshit, even when I don't know, okay? Get that straight. I don't know. But the reason I'm calling bullshit is this guy has lied so much that I cannot take him seriously on anything.
as an investigator, you have to think, what type of worldwide cataclysm event could produce mud, sand, and ash and bury 14 states worth of dinosaurs in mud, sand, and ash? Well, catastrophic plate tectonics describes that, because the tsunamis that would be happening, as you have the spreading seafloor over here, you have the subducting seafloor that goes under the landmass, it builds up tension, throws a tsunami up, that's going to be responsible for the first 2, mud and sand. As the subduction continues, you're going to have volcanism on the coastal areas here.
So like I said, I want to call bullshit on this, but since I don't know, let's give it the benefit of the doubt and say that dinosaur taphonomy can be all 3 of these substances mixed together, okay? Why a worldwide catastrophe again? And why catastrophic plate tectonics? Why not just plate tectonics? We know mountains form. We know how they form. We know that mountains are still growing. Why do you need catastrophic plate tectonics? Oh yeah, it's because you can't science. You have a preconceived notion of where you want to go. You pick and choose the evidence that leads to that preconceived notion, which isn't even evidence. You have to force it, and then you come to your preconceived conclusion. That is not science. Science is letting the evidence lead wherever the evidence leads, whether or not we like the outcome or not. So, no, you are not a scientist. Thank you very much. And no, I don't give a flying fuck if you have a legitimate degree or not. If you have a legitimate degree, or if you don't have a legitimate degree, if you have a preconceived idea of where you want to go. That is not science.
You have the subducting seafloor that goes under the landmass. It builds up tension, throws a tsunami up. That's going to be responsible for the first two, mud and sand. As the subduction continues, you're going to have volcanism on the coastal areas here as the heat and magma raise up and have all kinds of volcanic activity happening, like in California.
Back the fuck up. I just realized something that I didn't realize before. Maybe because it is so goddamn fucking stupid that my mind just failed to grasp how a grown man could say this. Whether you realize this or not, and you probably don't because you're so goddamn stupid. I mean, I wasn't even this stupid when I was a young Earth creationist. You just decimated your own argument, you fucking idiot. So let me explain what I just realized, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty. I just realized that what this motherfucker is saying is there were tsunamis that were powerful enough to cause volcanism, but somehow a wooden box, which all experts agree was not in the least any way seaworthy, stayed on top of the water despite these tsunamis. Are you fucking kidding me? Dude, have you stopped and listened to what you are saying? You are saying that there were tsunamis so goddamn powerful that they switched on volcanism, and somehow an itty-bitty box relative to the size of the Earth was able to exist throughout all of this. Are you fucking kidding me? My mind is just like, like I said, this is just so fucking stupid that my mind just refused to process that a grown man could have something this stupid come out of his mouth. That's why I did not catch this until now. I can't believe how stupid people have to be to buy this bullshit. Actually, let me back up and say, I can't believe how ignorant people have to be to buy this bullshit, because most of the young Earth creationists in the pews are just that, ignorant. They're not stupid.
California, for example, there's a place in Southern California called the Independence Dyke Swarm. It's 378 miles long, and it's a linear rift that's now closed and it's not active. But right here in Southern California was a linear rift almost 400 miles long that was responsible for producing 4,000 cubic miles of ash. We can't...
Oh, that's precious. Trying to use the Independence Dyke Swarm as proof of Noah's flood. Dude, the Independence Dyke Swarm formed in the Cretaceous era. I actually had no idea what a dike was. I had to look it up. Geology's not my strong suit. And you can tell he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about either, because if he did, he would stay away from the dike swarms. So I found an audio clip explaining what a dike is, and she does it much easier and, quite frankly, more eloquently than I could, so here's the clip.
A dike or dike, in geological usage, is a sheet of rock that formed in a fracture in a pre-existing rock body. Dikes can be either magmatic or sedimentary in origin. Magmatic dikes form when magma intrudes into a crack, then it crystallizes as a sheet intrusion, either cutting across layers of rock or through an unlayered mass of rock.
So exactly how does this hurt his case? I'm sure if you put your thinking cap on, you can think of at least a few reasons how this hurts his case. First of all, he's talking about things being buried in mud, sand, and ash. Now, like I said, I don't know much about geology, so if you want more information, you'll have to go to a geology channel. However, the clip said a dike is an intrusion in an existing rock. Now, a dike swarm is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of dikes found in one place. Now, when we're talking about the Independence Dyke Swarm, there is a prevailing pattern of these dikes, but they don't always do that. The prevailing pattern in the Independence dikes is northwest, but this is a generalization. They have been rotated. So if they were made in a worldwide flood, which is ridiculous, shouldn't they all be oriented the same way? But they're not. And keep in mind, a dike is an intrusion, usually of magma, but sometimes of sediment, in pre-existing rock. So, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about geology. I actually had to look up dikes and the Independence Dyke Swarm. But you can tell this guy has no idea what he's talking about because it totally disproves his premise.
Congratulations. You have invented a new kind of stupid, a damage you can never undo kind of stupid, and open all the cages in the zoo kind of stupid. Truly, you didn't think this through kind of stupid.
Well, friends, I wanted to give you your weekly dose of stupid, but like all things, you can overdose on the stupid, so I'm going to call it quits for now. Thank you for watching. I put a lot of clips in here because there were some things I wasn't quite sure about, so other people who know a lot more than I do about these topics would be the ideal ones to explain these topics, which is why I put in clips of them explaining. Plus, I mean, come on. They do it a lot better than I could. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you like what I do, please subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Please like the video. It pumps up the algorithm. Leave a comment down below. That also helps the algorithm. And please share this video, especially with any young Earth friends. If you are financially able, please join this channel. You can join for as little as 99 cents a month. You get custom emojis, and you also get these debunks early. So only if you're financially stable. And I will see you guys later. Bye.